Testing. All right, welcome everybody. Today is Monday, April 28th at 7 p.m. and we are going to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we'll start with member introductions with Councilor Harriman.
Scott Harriman, City Council Representative to the School Committee.
Megan Hurd, Ward 6.
Iman Osman, Ward 5.
Craig Charpentier, Ward 4.
Elizabeth Eames, Ward 3.
Janet Bowden, Ward 2.
Phoenix McLaughlin, Ward 1.
Jake Langley, Superintendent.
And so we are missing member Gallant for the remainder of the evening, as well as member Parks. And so I'm serving as your chair this evening. So I believe first thing we have for our regular meeting agenda is to receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Gabrielle Blaze for the assistant principal position for Lewiston High School.
And Principal Radke will come up to do an introduction.
Good evening. Very excited to put Gabby forward as a candidate for this position. She is currently a phys ed teacher at Lewiston High School, but before that, she was a biology teacher. And before that, a science teacher at the middle school. She's coached softball. She's a PSYOP trainer, student council advisor, class advisor. She's in fact the senior class advisor this year, so the job will be a snap after that particular task. DA advisor. She's also served on NEAS committees, and she is also a graduate of Lewiston High School. She went from Lewiston, and then she earned her bachelor's degree summa cum laude at USM Augusta and a master's degree in secondary education from the University of Phoenix. And I could not be more excited. She's going to be a great addition to the team at the high school, and you know, we're very lucky. So,
Member Bowden.
Thank you. I was so excited to see your name on the agenda tonight. Personally speaking, you were one of my daughter's favorite teachers at the high school. So much so as her anatomy and physiology teacher that she is actually excited to take anatomy and physiology next year in college, because she knows she's prepared. Because not only were you an amazing teacher, but you connect with students so well. So I think this is going to be a match made in heaven. I'm so excited to see this. So I will certainly make the nomination if no one else has anything to say.
I'll second that nomination.
Right, moved and seconded. Any other questions or thoughts? Gabby, would you like to say anything?
I just want to say thank you. Like John said, Lewiston is my second home. I'm a mom of a graduating senior, a teacher, graduated here. My husband graduated here. It's just Lewiston's what we do. So I'm super excited to take on this new challenge and hopefully create a culture that everybody loves to walk into the doors of LHS. So thank you.
Thank you. So no other questions, thoughts? Okay. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
Congratulations, Gary.
Congratulations. So up next is to receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Emily Shaner for the assistant principal position for Lewiston High School.
And again, very lucky to be bringing forward this nomination. Emily has been with the Lewiston Public Schools since 2018, and she joined the high school as a Spanish teacher. And I can tell you, it's been a real gift having her in the front office with her language ability as we get more and more students with varied languages. So it's super helpful. It's a little extra special something she brings. She served as a dean of students, and this year she stepped up to fulfill the interim assistant principal slot, and she's just done a masterful job at each of those steps along the way. She also runs the Student House of Representatives, and over her time with us has run many different student groups, really focusing on inclusiveness, bringing everybody into the process, and making folks feel at home at Lewiston High School. She went to Wagner College, and she completed her certification coursework through the Maine Educators Consortium. So I'm very excited to bring her name before you tonight.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything now?
Yes, I'm really lucky that I landed in Lewiston when I first moved to Maine. I've learned a lot here, and I hope to help others do the same and continue to serve the kids, because that's why we're here.
All right, thank you. Any questions or any other thoughts? Member Hurd.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the nomination for Emily for the assistant principal position for Lewiston High School.
All right, seconded by Member Bowden. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so next is to receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Hayden Tittle for the Assistant Director position of Multilingual Learner Program.
Good evening. I also am very lucky to be standing here tonight with Hayden. Hayden has worked in Lewiston since 2018. He's been a multilingual teacher at Lewiston High School. Most recently, he's been our multilingual team leader at the high school. He also has coached soccer. He runs the chess club at the high school, so he's very well-rounded and involved. But he has extensive knowledge in multilingual education, and he is going to be a perfect addition to our team. But what is most amazing about Hayden is his love for Lewiston. So we're really excited for him to come before you tonight for the Assistant Director of the Multilingual Learner Program position.
Thanks. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you. As Liza mentioned, I do love Lewiston. I've loved teaching here the past 7 years, and I'm excited to continue serving our community.
All right, thank you. Any questions or any thoughts? Member Hurd.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Hayden for the Assistant Director position of the Multilingual Learner Program.
I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Congratulations. All right, so agenda item number 9 is the consent agenda. So are there items that the members want to see removed or set aside from the consent agenda for discussion? All right. If there's no objection, then the consent agenda is adopted. So we will move on to item number 10, which is public input. And so members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and then on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff personnel matters or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comment shall be directed to the school committee and be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name, address, and affiliation to LPS. Go right ahead.
Matthew Agrin, Ward 4. At the last meeting of this committee, we watched and saw you all make a very bold move towards authoritarian behavior. When you decided to make a major change into how we do public comment and did it all in a single meeting instead of waiting for the second reading of it tonight and possibly more people standing up here to comment. We are now limited to 3 minutes each, 30 minutes overall. So that's 10 people. Unless on a given meeting you decide to change the rules. Prior to this, there was no limited number of people who could speak. And according to former members of the committee, there was no time limit in writing. The next change, those 10 people are to be limited to Lewiston citizens or school employees. But as I expected tonight, there is no sign-up sheet, nor is there a vetting process for that. There was some talk by members of the committee, could we limit non-residents to only submitting electronic thoughts? But we were told that was illegal. Then, if you might be a taxpayer here or a non-resident, the chair might permit you to speak if there's still time left. Otherwise, either way, after 30 minutes, without changing the rules, you're out of luck. You aren't allowed to present your point of view to be heard by this committee and the public, both here in person, and those of you watching this on video. My question is, does the school system set up a public comment email like the city does for the city councilors? It should. Now I have a question for you. Given that this is a very multicultural city, if someone needs translation service standing up here to talk to you, how does this work? Does the 3 minutes start when they start talking and end 3 minutes later? Or does it get extended for that person because translation? Because otherwise you're looking at 90 seconds on the clock probably. Kind of a way to keep our new Maine and Lewiston residents from coming up here and speaking before you. Let me be honest, I fear the major reason for these changes is the committee doesn't like to hear from the general public about issues we might care about, but you do not agree with. As it is under the rules that you all adopted, the chair, on their own call, is allowed to shut down public comment that runs contrary to any of the rules, and if need be, request the assistance of law enforcement to remove anyone they feel has caused disruptive conduct, which includes going over the 3 minutes, making comments from the table while others are talking, or making repetitive comments. Something both the committee and the city council rules state, but are rarely enforced, with no need to ask the rest of you to weigh in if they should be removed. And my final comment is, this committee, over the last 2 years, as a whole, has seemed to have a fear or forget that the public should be allowed to speak on any items before you. If we're not in a workshop, we should. The rules you just adopted say it. We have the right to be able to comment on items before you. And you should let us, because sometimes the person you least expect provides you the answer everyone has overlooked.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, well, seeing none, we will move on to item number 11, which is a budget workshop.
So we are kind of in the final stages, at least for now, as it relates to budget conversations. I did share a memo with you and in the packet about some potential options. But the history of it is we budgeted 10% for insurance. We thought it could come in as high as 17+% based on communications from the insurance provider. We then received information that the cap would be 14%, so it still left us nervous. But then it came in at 3.3%. And I said prior that that was an $865,000 savings in the budget, but it's actually $847,000 in savings. And so in the memo, I shared a couple of just different ideas. And I know that the committee has done a lot of work. You're well versed in this budget. And it sounds like there may be some interest in meeting in the middle or considering reductions. I think that that's something that you're able to do. It's responsible. And I think that the only caveats that I have for the conversation are really living in the unknowns, things that might not happen, but if they do, could cause some disruption. For example, if we lose chunks of funding and staff who are under contract or in our personnel policies, if their position is disrupted, there could be accrual payouts, retirement costs, and also contractual obligations like a 3-day window of pay for transition and things like that. So it's hard to put a fine finite number on that from a context of what to do. But the real question before you today is, do you wish to reduce those funds, which I think everyone in the committee has expressed an interest in coming to an agreement on that, to save money here at the taxpayer level, to lower that mill rate from 3.44% to something smaller. Adam and Bill are both here, so if we need to do some quick calculations, we can get you additional information. I've been trying to communicate with members of the committee just to see and get a pulse of where they're at, and it feels like a middle of the road conversation might be the driver, but I think there are other opinions that range from keep it all to reduce by it all, and so happy to answer any questions you may have. My memo was designed to just at least put numbers on paper to get it out there. One of the proposals, or of the proposals that I shared, was to put funds in Articles 1, 2, and 3. Again, just an idea to start the conversation. Underneath the umbrella of those are regular instruction, which would allow us to grow our teacher pool if we continue to grow and we need more teachers, or if there's a reduction in that area. Article 2, which is special education, which would allow you to continue to expand programs and spaces to hopefully deflect costs as we continue to down the road on that effort. And also Article 3, which, as you know, is CTE, which again has connections to both federal funding and also an interest to expand where possible. So just to roll the ball, I put at the bottom that my recommendation was to reduce with option A, but to retain some of those funds. But I really, I think that the committee's kind of collective will has been more in the middle of that road. So I guess I just want to open it up to discussion and see if we go from there.
All right. Can I also suggest if anyone has clarifying questions, perhaps to start before we get into debate, that might be a good way to start. Yeah, Member Bowden.
I was just going to ask if you could put your memo up on the screen for the people watching at home who may not have seen it in the packet.
I can. Hold on, I got to log in with Austin.
Give us one moment while he gets it up there.
So on the screen are just a couple. Bear with me. I'm getting sound feedback. Never seen this before, Austin. Yeah. Is that better? I feel like I can still hear me, but does it sound okay on your end? Okay. So on the screen, I have a couple of options that were shared. But again, this was to get things going, and one option is to leave the funding in various articles. The other is to reduce by the 147,000, I believe, which would get us to a 2.97% increase on the local mill rate from a school perspective, down from 3.44%. And again, I think prior to, it wasn't overly formal because we got the information kind of late, not kind of like, we got the information late on the day that we were meeting. And so there was some discussion that there may be room to meet this in the middle. So I open the floor to you and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Member Bowden, is that a hand? Okay.
Sure, I'll start. All right, so we budgeted for an extra $847,000. And I think it would be, a giant disservice to the taxpayers of this city to not at least take half of that and put it back and reduce that percentage even more. We kind of discussed this a little bit in finance committee, and I personally would like to see 400,000 of that reduced, taken out of the budget. And then keep the 447,000 for the what ifs. However you think appropriate to, distribute it. I'm comfortable with that, but I am not comfortable with only putting 147,000 or none back in. When we are in a year of reevaluations, our taxes are already going up. And if the referendum last year proved anything, it's that the taxpayers do not want to pay more taxes. And so if we have an opportunity to give them some of that back and not burden people more, we have an obligation to do that.
Okay, just before calling the next hand, Bill and Adam, while the conversation is happening, do you mind just running that number of 400,000 back? Thanks. Member Hurd.
2.15%. I would like, yeah, if you want to consider that a motion, then I'll make a motion to reduce it by 400,000.
Which I'm hearing from Adam that would be a 2.15% increase on the local mill rate instead of the 3.44.
Okay, I think so. Motion's on the floor. So is there a second to that motion right now? Okay, seconded by Member Charpentier. So we're now debating that specific motion. But I think it's okay to have still sort of the fuller discussion of this budget question. So Member Hurd, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you. So I am fine with the motion of taking half. I think that's responsible. We have been put in a predicament by other powers that be that are unfortunately out of our hands. And once again, the state is requiring us to do things with a lot less. And so I'd like to see the state step up at some point and kind of take care of their issues that they're causing, but that's a whole nother conversation. I think we need to, I would be okay with putting money for the what ifs. I would also be okay with putting money towards things if we were going to see an outcome. I think we talked a lot about this over the last couple of years when Kirsten came to us and said, I need more money for special education and this is what I want to do with it and this is what you're going to see. And I think coming back a year later, she followed through with her promises that she stood up there and promised to us. And so I'm always fine with that. And I think the taxpayers are okay with that. Like they're seeing a value for the dollars that they are paying more on their taxes. I don't know what value they're going to see by, putting this money in there for unseen circumstances, I think is fine. But and I'm just saying this, Jake, if you were going to come to us and say, okay, I want to keep $300,000 in regular instruction because we're going to tackle behaviors or we're going to tackle truancy or we're going to tackle this. And then a year from now, you come back and you say, this is what we've done. Then I would say, okay, then that money's worth it. But I don't know I don't know if you can put a dollar amount on that. I don't know if you're going to actually see any sort of results, when that comes. So I think like Member Bowden already said, if anything, if we learned anything from last year, it was that we don't want to go into that again. We don't want to have multiple referendums. We just don't want to have to do that again. I think it was not only a burden on our local people, but I think if we're being honest, there was so much uncertainty in LPS that a lot of people jumped ship. They didn't know what they were doing. They left. We had to fill vacancies. Like we just don't want to go down that road again. And so in order to completely bypass that altogether, I think we need to take at least half of that back and put it back in and show the taxpayers that we care about the money that they're spending, and everybody's dollar is different. But I think it's important to show them that, we're hearing what they said last year by not passing it multiple times.
I think I saw Member Eames next.
Thank you. I'm worried about the feds, not the state, and I feel like there's so much uncertainty at the federal level and how much is going to be able to come through the state to us or directly to us, that I do feel very strongly that we need to keep the contingency. So if not all of it, then the 700K. It just seems like prudent to plan in a context in which planning is very difficult. I think we need to hold that contingency. That's my point. Thank you.
Councillor Harriman.
Thank you. So my initial thought is I would also love to keep the whole amount. I do wonder though, if something were to happen with federal funding, if $847,000 would even make much of a dent in how much we could potentially lose in funding. So the other piece of this is that on the city budget side of things, we've sort of been operating, realizing that the school committee hasn't made a vote on this amount of money yet. We've sort of been operating under a bit of an assumption that it would be approximately half of it that could be reduced. So I would be on board for reducing up to half of that 847,000. I think that strikes somewhat of a balance between reducing the tax rate a little bit more and holding some on for some contingencies. I think there are some possibilities out there. I don't know how likely they are, but there are some possibilities that we just don't have the capacity to budget for. So I think probably splitting the difference is our best option at this point.
Jake, would you mind saying a little more about what Councillor Harriman was kind of getting at there in terms of what are the potential concerns and what would the financial impact of those concerns be?
So I'll do my best, but I also want to start with a disclaimer that a lot of these things are could be's and not things that are definitive. If, for example, title funds get disrupted in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a reduction or a pause, things like that, because of the way our flow of cash works, we could have to reduce. So I'll just go Title I specifically. If Title I went away, hypothetically, which is, I think, a really extreme thing that I don't think would happen in full, but a lot's going on. If that happened, we would be over 30 positions that we would be immediately not able to fund. With those folks also have contracts, and those contracts have provisions in them. People could retire and take accruals with them. People, they get, and depending on the contract, they get days of transition, up to 3 paid days. We worry about lag time between giving someone appropriate notice per contract and the funding stopping. So any of that gap would be on us. I mean, those are just some examples of Title I related funding challenges. There's some other concerns too. We've had some funds paused and then turned back on with nutrition. We've had funds from adult education actually get pulled. And I'd have to get you more details. That was new today of $107,000, which would disrupt a training program that also has transportation and an employee tied to it. So if those things come up, we're in this like delay process of, for example, that adult ed program has already begun, is running. It's supposed to go into the fall, I think into like December or something to that effect. And so we already have someone hired, we already have the plans and already happening, and now that funding has stopped. So we're trying to make determinations on what to do to make things viable. So again, it's a bit of an unknown. I think some of those hurdles we can conquer, and some of those hurdles will, by contract, have financial obligations for our district that we cannot really project and predict because it's not always a one-for-one. One example I would share is I know when we had cuts in the past years, several years, to positions, we've actually had some people say, I prefer to retire because I can and make sure that person can still work. Retirements are more expensive for us, but it might be the right thing for them to do interpersonally, for someone that they work with. So we can't estimate an exact number because all of those caveats exist. If Title I funding is flat, we have some reductions that we'll have to make. And if Title I funding goes up a little bit, we won't have any concerns around what exists currently. That's just Title I specifically. We have numerous grants and other funds that are connected to federal sources, and right now we're just day to day monitoring things. And if there's a cease or a pause, it could have implications connected to contracts that I worry about and people's jobs if it's in title, because we have no budget for that. As a sidestep, we did have nutrition funding paused. It was a small amount. It was restored pretty much right away because it was a over the weekend injunction from a judge. Lewiston Public Schools is a fully federally reimbursed school nutrition program. We do not carry, other than a small contingency, I think of what, $5,000 for nutrition in our budget at all. So if funding for school nutrition gets disrupted even a little, we have nothing to fall back on. We can get creative and we can problem solve, but I'm worried about these kind of unpredictable potentials, but that also could not come to fruition, any of them. So that's the real challenge.
Other thoughts or questions from the committee? Member Eames?
There is a motion on the
Yep,
floor.
there is.
But my question is, where did that half come from? Last meeting, that was thrown out as a possibility. Where did it come from? Was it from calculation or just a number thrown out at the moment?
So in my head, I was trying to figure the 30 positions, payouts, work stoppages. I'll use the word guesstimating. So it wasn't factual. These are the people, those are the conditions, because there's too many variables. But I did think that somewhere around half would help us insulate Lewiston Public Schools from shortfalls that we can't recover from if that plays out. That's where I came up with that.
And half
number.
was enough, you thought? Because that's what I'm worried about. So half was enough, you thought?
I think if the committee could support half of this reduction tonight, I feel strongly about it. One, getting passed at the city council level. I feel good about it at the referendum. If people go out and vote May 13th, please go vote. But I do think it's responsible to not sit on funds that we just don't know. But I think it's irresponsible to have no funds with all of these anomalies out there.
Member Hurd?
Thank you. If we put if we put half into our budget and let's just say none of these things come to fruition, where would that money go next? Would it go into the fund balance? Would it?
It's a great question. So any of these funds that get set aside in this way, if they go unspent, then they land in fund balance and they're available for use in future budgets.
And so I would be in support of the half because we've had this fund balance conversation before about down the road, we're going to hit that cliff where we have no fund balance. And then that's a local ask that is very large. So I would be okay with half.
Just one question about where the money will go. How is this breakdown between the three articles? Was that just proportional or were there particular costs? I'm especially curious about the CTE and how that plays into this.
So CTE, as you know, is LRTC and those career technical education programs. One of the reasons we wanted to put some funds there, if it would be considered, was because we have exceeded subsidy in that area. And local districts have made a contribution to help with your prior approved level. This would not reduce their contribution, but if that budget increases in this way or in any way, those are funds that would help with any gap that we have from subsidy. Also, just looking at different programs that are federally funded, and CTE is heavily funded by Perkins funds, which is a federal funding source, and reductions of those could spread through a metric of just percentage reduction through disbursement. So I was concerned that the carpentry program wouldn't be able to buy lumber, and the welding program wouldn't be able to have, you know, metal or gases to cut and mend with. So that was why I was thinking some funds in CTE. If I had to just pick right now, the reason I like doing Article 1 is it's regular instruction. So if we have another 100 kids sign up for school before next year and we need 2 more teachers, that comes right out of regular instruction. Article 2 is special education. Inevitably, the folks that, if we have more kids coming in, there will be a percentage of them that require special education services. And also we have this ongoing effort around special education. What can we provide that we can deflect cost on elsewhere? So if let's say if you went with the motion to reduce by 400,000, I would anticipate keeping a similar metric, and I would go 200 Article 1, 200 Article 2, and 47 for CTE. And that would be really about supplies and things. If they get some kind of reduction, they can't run their classes because they don't have the dollars to do so. That would be my pitch to you.
Member Hurd.
Thank you. Does St. Dom's contribute to any of that CTE? They send any of their kiddos here?
They do not.
Member Bowden.
I just wanted to say, I do appreciate that breakdown that you just gave us, the 200, 247. And, you know, I'm over the moon thankful that this came back at 3.3% and we're not at 17% in a position where we're asking the taxpayers to shell out more money to cover this. So, you know, if we can give back to them, I just think that it's just so important. So I just want to thank the whole committee for listening, and I know we have a vote in front of us, but yeah, thank you guys.
Just a practical question. Does the motion need to include that breakdown you just described?
I think if you make that motion without some other directive, I'll have Adam help me put it in where we want it.
Okay. Councilor Herman.
Just real quick, I know that I believe the motion was to reduce by 400,000, and some of us have kind of talked about half as well. And I wonder if there's any appetite to up that from 400,000 to 423 or whatever that would be, to make it an even half of that, or if we want to stay at 400,000.
Member Eames.
You lost me at that point. I was going to go for the 400. I'm not going to go for that.
Okay.
I don't want to amend my motion. I want to keep it as it is, which is a reduction of 400,000.
Okay. I'll just say for my part, I do think that's the right way to go. I mean, there's just so many overlapping uncertainties, one of which is, does the budget pass? And that is one that's on my mind as well. And so I think you know, it's an appropriate and sensible answer, I think, for this situation, which actually is a stroke of luck in this case, and not one that we can guarantee every year. But so I think this is a good use of it for now. Before further discussion or a vote, are there any members of the public who would wish to speak to this item? Go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Carl Schelleen. Thank you all for being here. Member Bowden, thank you so much. I appreciate using a substantial, or I approve of using a substantial portion of this to reduce the tax burden. 400 is a great place to start. If I am allowed to be picky, I would love to have 432,500 be appropriated for the reduction, because that was what the city council was under the impression would happen, what I was under the impression, and our city staff. Right now, we're coming in and at a dollar even. It will be slightly more, and while that's 400 is certainly within the realm of reason, I would love to get it to the 432,500. And I understand the problems and issues that you're facing, and I appreciate the discussion. And yeah, thank you so much.
Just out of curiosity, Member Herman, do you know what the city's projected increase is at this point?
Yes, so the city's projected increase is is a 50-cent increase, which is 2.98%. But then there's also the county is increasing theirs by 23 cents, which is 13.5%.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I appreciate you guys are willing to take the 400K off the top and put it back into off the budget. I think that's proper. I think given the total uncertainty between both our state funding and the federal funding, we need to have something as a safety net. And it's not a safety net. If they both fall, we are screwed. This city is too big to operate with just what the city can support itself. Or it can, but you'll lose 3/4 of your businesses. Most of your people will leave. I do wish, though, that the money that you set aside from this year, if it's not used on this budget, as you earmark it to remove it from next year's budget. It's a little simple thing. You just say, any money we save because of this insurance, we automatically will take it off the top next year. You guys, because we may get funds, as Jake said, it may get closed one day, reopen the next day. So we have to use some of our fund balance, kind of like a bank account, money in, money out. At the end of the year, maybe we'll still have $447,000 in money we haven't had to spend because everything has gone our way. Don't think that will happen, but sometimes it's nice to be an optimist. I love to see that we're increasing money into the special ed program. I think we have a major need there. I'd like to see that we're spending extra money into the technical program. Once more, we need those skill sets. Thank you for your time.
So the motion on the table is to reduce by $400,000, which would change the local ask to 2.15% on the local mill rate. I'm just looking at Adam to make sure I'm at it.
Give you the other number, that's 29 cents.
That would be a 29-cent increase. Okay, thank you, Adam.
All right, any other thoughts, questions, anything else from any members of the committee whatsoever before we vote on this? No, I'm not seeing anything. Okay, well, let's call the vote. So yeah, motion on the table is to reduce the budget by $400,000 as discussed. So all those in favor? All right, it is unanimous. Yeah, unanimous budget vote. That is exciting. Yeah.
Hopefully this, again, will get support from members of our community on May 13th. You can vote at Longley from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and contact your city registrar if you have any questions about absentee ballot.
Great, thank you for that important reminder. Item number 12 is to review the public comment preamble. Does anybody wish to speak to this before yes, Member Eames.
Yeah, so this comes from the policy committee, but it's not a policy. It is a suggestion that we say this at every meeting so that the public at every meeting will understand the terms in which they're engaging in public comment. We also would pledge, once this was in place, to have it placed around on every table and maybe posted on the wall in big format, and copies of the policy itself on the back table once this is all in place. This has been vetted by a subset, not the entire committee. So I think this is okay to share with the entire committee at this point. Wordsmithing in public is a difficult thing, so we might not want to do that, but we can at least talk about the principles and agree, or else agree to wordsmith elsewhere. That would be my hope.
Did you have anything to say on this?
There was a number of eyes on this, but it felt appropriate to have it back in front of the committee. You do have it in your amended packet from this afternoon. So just want to share. Again, a longer version of this is used in multiple districts around the state.
Member Bowden?
I just have a question on the public comment period is limited to 30 minutes, but didn't we say like it doesn't actually have to be limited to 30 minutes? So why are we saying it like that? So like, period, 30 minutes. Like,
Member Eames.
To keep it short, because it is in the policy,
Okay.
the big policy, the 2-page policy, which I'll put on the back table every time, that it could be amended to, could be, I mean, like today, we didn't have
At the chair's discretion
at the chair's
extended?
discretion,
Okay.
at the committee vote, it could happen, but normally it would be less than, it would be 30 minutes or less, like today it was 3 minutes. So, but on occasion, we may end up with many people lining out the door, and then obviously it would be at our discretion to change it. But the presumption, we wrote it as the presumption is 30 minutes. And again, this is based on what other places are doing.
Do you have something to add to that or no?
I agree with Member Eames that we don't want to get into editing this word for word, but I also think that that would be a small change that I think the group might appreciate. The public comments period is limited to 30 minutes, and we can add something there that says unless extended by the committee.
Yeah.
And that was about words, getting it short. Yeah.
Trying to make it short. It was quite long the first time. Yeah, I mean, I would just say all of these are rules that can be suspended at the discretion of the chair and the committee. I mean, yeah, it is the fact. Member Hurd.
We don't want to go down that road about suspending the rules. We're gonna have some members that are gonna have some serious PTSD. I think this is fine. You know, I'm fine with whatever, and we don't have to have a vote on this, right? Like, it's just, yeah, I think it's great.
It's just
Council-
long. It's still long.
It is long, yeah. Councilor Harriman.
Yes, that was my only concern, was that just, to have the chair read this at the beginning of every public comment period, it seems long, but I suppose once you get used to it, it won't take that much time. So, and I also had a question. So just to clarify, this is basically a summary of the policy, just to shorten it down, condense it to a shorter version for.
Right.
Okay.
It's not the policy lives in the policy manual.
Right.
But that can be available, that can be available.
Mhm.
Actually, I think this is saying that the full policy will be available.
Yes.
I have 25 copies with me if you want them.
Okay. Okay.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Member Hurd.
So I do think this is fine, but also I would say the first 2 bullet points, like, does that really need to be said? Like, we don't say it now, like, this meeting exists for the school committee to conduct committee business. What else do they think
It's not a debate. It's not a question and answer session. It's not for us to do a Q&A. It is for us to do our business. That's the most important sentence. This next one is the second most important sentence in
Yeah.
this. Because before, and maybe you want to speak to it, Katie, before, it could go all over the place. People didn't understand what this meeting was about and what the public comment section of the meeting was about. And so this is insisting that that's what it's about. We're here to listen to you. We're not engaging. We're just listening.
If I might just say what I've observed sometimes happens is folks might not realize that we can't respond to them. So none of us should. It's not really a time for questions. I could also imagine a scenario where somebody says stuff that is actually allowed, but we don't want to, all of us or one of us really dislikes and wants to say something back. That's not allowed either. So I think it's trying to just be a reminder around that. Maybe you don't like that, but yeah, remember, go ahead.
Thank you. So to finish what I was actually saying was, I feel like if you are going to come and speak at public comment, you have to sign in anyway. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, you come in, you sign, you read the rules, and then you come up to the podium. Like, I don't feel like the first 2 bullets to me is just a little bit redundant, because we have to stop holding everybody's hand here. We have to make some realistic expectations and hold the public accountable when they're coming to our meetings. Like, you need to know what's expected of you when you come here. I guess. I feel I'm fine with it, but I'm also just saying, like, we're all adults here. And so I feel like there's a lot of hand holding. Like, I think that's kind of how we're in the predicament we're in as a generation. And so, like, let's hold adults to a certain standard, I guess. I don't know.
That's what
Okay.
this does.
Any other thoughts from the committee right now? So this, again, this is not something we're voting on. It's just for discussion, but I think it's appropriate as an agenda item about public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Yes, go ahead.
So being on part of the committee that we came up with this. So one of the biggest reasons for doing that is when we're having members coming from outside in the community that are not part of Lewiston, that are coming in and speaking at the meetings, that should not be coming into the meetings that are speaking, and they're coming up to the podium to speak, and announcing who they are here to speak on behalf of. At that time, we really can't say, you need to go sit down now. So if they're saying they're from Lisbon or Sabattis or Topsom, and they're not from Lewiston, that's why we had put in that you're here to discuss school board committee business. If you're also here to come at them and discuss something, if you're saying, I was a former parent here. Okay, well, you're not here to currently discuss something, then you shouldn't be discussing anything coming at any one of the school board members at this time. There's an appropriate place and a way to go about that. And don't come at the school board members attacking them at this time. If you have something to say to one of them or to the superintendent, there's a way to go about doing that. This is not the appropriate place to do that because we're here to discuss current business. And this is not the way to go about that. So when we had come up with doing this and putting these in there, a lot of things were going through our minds of what's happened currently this year and how can we go about not having any of this take place again, to help make the meetings run smoother and take the safety into consideration for everybody, not only on this end of the room, but this end of the room. So that's why it may look like a lot, but we wanted to make sure we were thinking of everybody's well-being in doing that.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who would like to speak? Sorry. Issues with the timer here, which is ironic. So any other last thoughts on this before we move on? No, okay. Okay, so the next item is a report from the school committee chair, which I suppose is me. So my only report is to go vote on May 13th. I didn't hear anything from Member Parks in terms of items to share, so we can move right along to the report from the school superintendent.
So just a few things. As we started our meeting tonight, we visited 287 Main Street and did a tour, a walkthrough, allowed people to have an opportunity to see the space and ponder some ideas. So that work continues. I did share a bit of this prior, but I do want to just touch on things because I think from a federal perspective, we wanted to be updated. Our lunch reimbursement was shorted a little bit based on some federal funding stoppages, but then it was restored, and it was so quick that it didn't disrupt us other than we had to start to ponder what does this look like if it's bigger than this. Adult education did have a federal grant pulled. Again, it's our suspicion that this was a nationwide component, and we can get more details for you. The Montello entrance had some upgrades, and they will have additional upgrades done over time connected to doorways, access points, things of that nature, accessibility. Our grounds were swept up, if you will, over break. So if you drove by some of our campuses during April break, you saw either a dust cloud or mud moving along the pavement. I saw both. It was interesting. But grounds are cleaned up from the winter. There's some updates with LCIP and conversations that happened there. There's a question around a $50,000 piece for some flashing lights. We're also able to do some work on our recent flashing light situation with current budget. So we'll keep continuing to work on that. I know the neighbors who have the flashlights on 24/7 are like, please shut them off. But the ones over by Farwell are now all set. So but also want to say thank you to public who have reached out to say, hey, this is not working right. And just I think as a community looking after our grounds and their spaces and reaching out to us is really appreciated. Another reduction was connected to some fencing around the fields that was placed by city, and a discussion around how we might manage the facility as a split cost, and that's been pulled out. What's continued to move forward is the tennis court replacement as a split cost that we're sharing with the city. That seems to have some good following from. I didn't know this when I first moved to Lewiston many years ago now, but Lewiston has a huge tennis following, and pickleball has just made it that more people that much more vested. And then the last thing I just want to bring up. And this is really just to share a pulse. We are following the pulse of what we would call an effort at the state level, which is called a people's veto. And the people's veto is something where 67,000 signatures would have to be collected by June 18th. If that happens, according to all the legal advice and everything that I have read about it, if that happens, it could or it will pause subsidy to the entire state from July 1st until it can be voted on November 8th, unless some other injunction is put in place. Is a very concerning component for school districts. So I want people to be informed, be mindful if they're signing petitions to know what they're signing, what implications it could have, but that people's veto, if signed, will pause funding unless there's some other step, which doesn't exist currently, would pause funding to municipalities, projects, everything that gets funded through the state until November 8th at its earliest when it could be voted on. And it's never been done before, at least in my time. And it's going to be very concerned as it relates to funding schools and other projects.
Any questions about any of that? No. Okay. Next up is the report from the city council representative.
Thank you. Just want to remind people that next Tuesday, May 6th, is the final budget hearing for city council. So it includes the city budget and the school budget. With the action that we took tonight, we're currently looking at a $1.02 increase to the mill rate, which is just over 3% overall. Other news, Monday the 5th is when our new city administrator is starting, Brian Cainrath. And you can also, he's holding a couple more meet and greets this week. So tomorrow evening, 5 to 6:30 at Community Credit Union on Pine Street. And then Wednesday evening, 5:30 to 6:30 at Tree Street. Just some casual opportunities to meet the new administrator, ask questions. And then my last piece was we've talked about the school budget vote a couple times. And as far as absentee voting, you have until next Thursday, the 8th, in order to request your absentee ballot. Otherwise, vote on the 13th. That's all I've got.
Any questions for the counselor? All right, seeing none. Updates from school committee subcommittees. Have any met since the last meeting? Counselor Osmond?
We had our first ad hoc schools behaviors and safety subcommittee meeting on the 8th with me and Megan Parks and Superintendent and Karen. It was great that it was just the initial. We're gonna have more follow-up meetings, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Member Hurd.
Thank you. So facilities actually met tonight, and thankfully Jake just recapped all of it, so I didn't have to do it. So thank you, Jake. I don't think there was anything else that he forgot that we talked about.
Just the facilities assessment. Getting kicked off on Wednesday.
Yes, so we are having a facilities assessment that starts on Wednesday, so there will be more information about that to come. We also did chat a little bit. McMahon is looking to upgrade their playground. So they're having some conversations about that. So hopefully that will all happen over the summer. And oh, did you talk about the roof? So McMahon is in phase 2 of a roof replacement. So it's mostly over the cafeteria and the front entry hallway. So some summer programming there has been moved to Connors, and I believe also the admin offices will have to be out of there for the summer as well. So some changes over there that they'll have to figure out, but it's all good stuff. So the kids don't get rained on during lunch. So
Thank you. Any others? Member Bowden? Nope. Yeah, Finance Committee, I think, no, we have not had another meeting since our last meeting, so no other updates there. Next one is School Committee Community Announcements. Member Bowden.
Thank you. That's what I wanted. So the month of May, just there's a lot going on in May. And we're there. We're there as of Friday or Thursday. I don't even know what day it turns into May, Thursday. So I just wanted to just kind of reiterate the things that are happening in May. We have, I thought I put everything in my calendar, but I might miss something, so I apologize. May 17th is prom for Lewiston High School, and it is at Lost Valley this year. I'm not actually sure on the time. I'm guessing 6 or 7. Anyone know? It's not important, but prom is on the 17th. And then it looks like we have a top 10 luncheon coming up on May 8th, which is next Thursday. And graduation is on May 30th this year. So some exciting things happening. I know there's another graduation that I missed that we just spoke about before.
There's adult ed.
Yeah, an adult health graduation coming up. I think that's on May 1st.
That's Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, Thursday. Yep. So yeah, I just wanted to let the community know there's a lot going on this month. Oh, and the referendum is May 13th.
Any other community announcements? No? Okay. All right. Next item is future agenda items. Any thoughts or requests on that? Member Bowden.
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to circle back to before we started budget talks, we had gotten that email from Luke Jensen with all like kind of a plan he broke down, and I kind of wanted to circle back to that now that budget season's over and like have a discussion around like some improvement things, and maybe that's a subcommittee talk. I don't know, but I just didn't want it to get forgotten that came up before budget.
Member Osmond.
Again, it's just to explore additional partnership for student reentry program.
All right, thank you. Other agenda item requests? Yes, okay. Yeah, I think my impression is we have a decent backlog of agenda items around goal setting, around various policies, around some behavior related things. So I think it's a long list we still have to work through. And our next meeting is next Monday. So we'll see you soon. So if there's nothing else, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, okay. Seconded by Member Bowden. All those in favor? All right. Have a good night.